The Alliance fleet hung in perfect formation, when space itself seemed to tear open before them. Reality bent and twisted as the UNS Shadow Strike materialized from nothingness, its impossible geometry causing several sensor operators to look away in discomfort. The ship defied easy description, its hull appearing to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while generating energy readings that made no sense according to known physics. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The vessel before them measured nearly 2 kilometers in length, larger than any human ship ever constructed, yet it moved with the grace of a fighter craft. Its hull absorbed light in patterns that created optical illusions, making it difficult to focus on any single section for more than a few seconds. All ships, hold position, Kethvar ordered through the fleet communication system. Do not target the human vessel. Repeat, do not target. On the bridge of the Shadow Strike, Commander Blake watched the Alliance fleet's reaction through sensors that penetrated their ships' hulls as easily as looking through glass. He could see the fear and confusion on alien faces, the frantic activity at weapon stations as crews struggled to understand what they were facing. Open a communication channel, Blake ordered. The holographic display in the center of the Alliance Council chamber flickered to life, showing the interior of the Shadow Strike's bridge. The assembled representatives gasped as they recognized the figure standing at the center of the image. Captain Jake Morrison, the human diplomat they had believed dead for over 2 years, looked back at them with eyes that held depths of knowledge and pain that had not been there before. Greetings, Alliance Council, Morrison said, his voice carrying across the chamber with perfect clarity. I trust you are surprised to see me. Ambassador Lyra leaned forward in her seat, her blue skin glowing with excitement and relief. Captain Morrison, we thought you were dead. Your ship, the Meridian, we found debris. The Meridian was destroyed, Morrison confirmed, along with most of the human fleet. But as you can see, reports of our extinction were somewhat exaggerated. Chancellor Vextoth studied the holographic image with calculating eyes. The bridge visible behind Morrison bore no resemblance to any human ship design in Alliance databases. The walls seemed to flow like liquid metal, covered in patterns that shifted and moved with hypnotic complexity. The crew members visible in the background appeared human, but something about them seemed different, as if they had been touched by forces beyond normal understanding. Captain, Vextoth said carefully, we have been monitoring your approach for 3 days. The technology you are displaying exceeds anything in our databases. Where have you been? What happened to your people? Morrison's expression hardened. What happened to us? You happened to us, Chancellor. When the Zephyrian fleets attacked our worlds, when our cities burned and our children died. Where was the mighty Alliance? Where were the promises of mutual defense and shared sacrifice? The accusation hung in the air like a physical weight. Every representative in the chamber remembered the debate that had torn the Alliance apart during humanity's final battle. Political pressure, resource limitations, and fear of Zephyrian retaliation had led to a decision that would haunt them forever. Captain, Admiral Kethvar said quietly, we made mistakes, terrible mistakes. The withdrawal from Earth was not unanimous and many of us fought against it, but you must understand the Zephyrian fleet was enormous. We faced the possibility of losing the entire Alliance fleet. So you saved yourselves and left us to die, Morrison replied. Fortunately for us, death had other plans. Dr. Sarah Williams stepped into view beside Morrison, her presence adding scientific authority to the revelation that was about to unfold. She had aged in the 2 years since her last appearance in Alliance records, but there was something else different about her. Her eyes held knowledge that seemed almost alien in its scope. Members of the Alliance, Williams began, during our final battle for survival, we discovered something beneath Earth's surface. Technology left behind by a species that ruled this galaxy millions of years before any of our civilizations arose. We call them the precursors. She gestured, and the holographic display expanded to show images that defied comprehension. Vast underground chambers filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. Geometric patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could process. Artifacts that appeared to be both organic and mechanical at the same time. The precursor technology operates on principles that our previous science could not explain, Williams continued. Space and time become malleable. Energy and matter interchange freely. The boundaries between thought and reality blur in ways that transform not just our ships but ourselves. Dr. Quantel leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. Dr. Williams, are you saying that humanity has integrated alien technology into your biology? Not integrated, Williams corrected. Evolved. The precursor artifacts do not simply provide new tools. They offer new ways of existing. We are still human, but we have become something more than we were. To demonstrate her point, Williams extended her hand toward a control panel that was clearly too far away to reach. The panel responded to her gesture as if her consciousness itself was touching it, causing displays to shift and change without any physical contact. Chief Engineer Alex Rodriguez joined the holographic conference, his appearance showing the same subtle changes that marked all the Shadow Strike's crew. The ship you see before you represents 2 years of desperate innovation, he explained. We built it in hidden star systems beyond the galactic rim, using construction techniques that your current science would call impossible. We incorporated precursor principles into every system, Rodriguez continued. The hull exists in a state of quantum uncertainty, allowing it to phase between dimensions. The power source draws energy from the fabric of space itself. The weapons, he paused as if reconsidering how much to reveal. The weapons operate on principles that I pray you never have to witness. Navigation Officer Lisa Carter's voice added another layer to the revelation. Our jump drives no longer require hyperspace. We move through dimensions that exist between reality and possibility. A journey that would take your ship's weeks can be completed in hours. Chancellor Vextoth found his voice, though it trembled slightly. Captain Morrison, if humanity possesses such incredible power, why reveal yourselves to us now? You could claim dominion over the entire galaxy. Morrison's expression grew grim. Because there is something you need to know about the Zephyrians. Something that threatens not just the Alliance, but every living thing in this galaxy. Intelligence Officer Amy Foster stepped forward, carrying data tablets covered in information that made the assembled representatives lean forward despite their fear. Our deep space monitors have detected massive construction projects in Zephyrian space. They are building something enormous, something that incorporates technology similar to what we found on Earth. The Zephyrians have found precursor artifacts? Ambassador Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Worse, Foster replied. They have found something that was never meant to be found. Our analysis suggests they have discovered a precursor weapon system, something designed to cleanse entire star systems of life. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Alliance Council. Representatives who had been worried about humanity's new power now faced a threat that made their previous concerns seem trivial. Morrison looked directly at the camera, his eyes reflecting the weight of knowledge that no human should have to bear. The Alliance abandoned us once, leaving us to face extinction alone. We survived, but only by becoming something that your former allies might no longer recognize as human. He paused, letting the implications sink in before delivering his ultimatum. You have 72 hours to prove that the Alliance has changed. Prove that you can be trusted to stand against a threat that makes the previous Zephyrian invasion look like a minor skirmish. If you cannot, then humanity will face this new enemy alone, and we will consider any Alliance forces that interfere to be hostile. The holographic display flickered and died, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, the Shadow Strike hung motionless in space, its impossible geometry a constant reminder that the balance of power in the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Ambassador Lyra stared at the empty space where Morrison's image had been, knowing that the next 3 days would determine whether the Alliance could earn a second chance at redemption, or whether humanity would write them off as failures who could not be trusted in the galaxy's darkest hour. The Alliance Council chamber erupted in chaos the moment Morrison's hologram disappeared. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen different languages, while their translation devices struggled to keep up with the overlapping arguments. Admiral Kethvar slammed his fist on the podium, the sound echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. Silence, Kethvar roared, his voice carrying the authority of decades of military command. We have 72 hours to decide the fate of our alliance and possibly our entire civilization. We will not waste time on pointless arguments. Chancellor Vextoth stood slowly, his red eyes burning with a mixture of fear and anger. Admiral, you speak as if we have a choice in this matter. The humans have made it clear that they consider themselves superior to us now. They offer us the chance to prove ourselves worthy of their alliance, as if we were children seeking approval from our betters. And perhaps we are, Ambassador Lyra said quietly, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. We abandoned them when they needed us most. We let political considerations override our moral obligations. If they now judge us unworthy of trust, can we honestly say they are wrong? The debate that followed revealed deep fractures within the alliance that had been hidden beneath the surface for years. Some representatives, led by Vextoth, argued that humanity's transformation made them a threat that needed to be contained or destroyed. Others, inspired by Lyra's moral clarity, insisted that the alliance owed humanity a debt that could only be repaid through absolute support. Aboard the Shadow Strike, Commander Blake monitored the Alliance communications while his senior staff analyzed the political dynamics unfolding before them. The ship's advanced sensors could penetrate the Council chamber's shielding, allowing them to observe the debates in real time. They are more divided than I expected, Intelligence Officer Amy Foster reported. The Hegemony faction is actively advocating for military action against us, while the Preservation faction wants to offer full cooperation. The swing votes will determine which side wins. Dr. Sarah Williams studied streams of data flowing across her console, information gathered from sensors that could analyze everything from quantum fluctuations to biological stress indicators. Commander, I am reading elevated stress levels throughout the Alliance fleet. Many of their crews are on the edge of panic. The psychological impact of our revelation may be greater than we anticipated. Blake nodded grimly. The crew of the Shadow Strike had grown accustomed to their transformation over the past 2 years, but they sometimes forgot how their changes appeared to others. The integration of precursor technology had altered them in subtle ways that went beyond mere physical enhancement. They thought faster, perceived more, and existed in a state of awareness that was difficult to explain to those who had not experienced it. Sir, Navigation Officer Lisa Carter called from her station. I am detecting movement in the outer system. Several Hegemony ships are breaking formation and moving to flanking positions. Chief Engineer Alex Rodriguez looked up from his console, where readouts showed the incredible systems that kept the Shadow Strike operational. Commander, if they attack us, should I bring the defensive systems online? Blake considered the question carefully. The Shadow Strike's defensive capabilities far exceeded anything the Alliance fleet could throw at them, but demonstrating that power might be exactly the wrong message to send. They needed the Alliance to trust them, not fear them even more than they already did. Maintain current status, Blake decided. If they fire on us, we will respond, but I want to give them every opportunity to make the right choice. The bridge fell silent as they watched the tactical display showing Alliance ships maneuvering around them like predators circling prey. The irony was not lost on any of them. 2 years ago, these same species had abandoned humanity to face extinction alone. Now they debated whether to attack the survivors who had transcended their previous limitations. Tactical Officer Kevin Walsh studied the Alliance fleet's movements with the practiced eye of a combat veteran. Sir, their formation suggests they are planning a coordinated strike. Multiple vectors of attack overlapping fields of fire. They know they cannot penetrate our defenses with conventional weapons, but they might try to overwhelm us with sheer volume. Let them try, Rodriguez said quietly. The precursor technology has given us capabilities they cannot even imagine. Dr. Williams looked up from her research station, her expression troubled. Commander, I have been analyzing the quantum signatures from Zephyrian space. The readings are getting stronger. Whatever they are building, it is approaching completion. The revelation focused everyone's attention on the larger threat. While the Alliance debated whether to trust humanity, the Zephyrians were preparing to unleash something that could destroy entire star systems. The urgency of the situation made the political maneuvering seem petty and short-sighted. Foster, Blake ordered. Send another communication burst to the Alliance. Share our data on the Zephyrian construction project. Let them see what we are really facing. On Harmony Prime, Admiral Kethvar received the human data transmission just as Chancellor Vextoth was calling for a vote on military action against the Shadow Strike. The information contained in the human files made his blood run cold. Dr. Quantel worked frantically to analyze the data, his scientific training warring with the impossibility of what he was seeing. Admiral, these readings suggest a construction project spanning several star systems. The energy requirements alone should be impossible to generate, yet the signatures are definitely real. Ambassador Lyra studied the tactical projections that accompanied the human data. If these readings are accurate, the Zephyrians are building something that could sterilize entire sectors of the galaxy. This makes our previous conflicts with them look like minor border disputes. Vextoth remained unmoved by the revelation. This could be human disinformation designed to manipulate us into submission. We have only their word that this threat exists. You would rather believe that humanity is lying than face the possibility that we are all in terrible danger? Lyra asked incredulously. Before Vextoth could respond, the station's sensors detected something that ended all debate. A probe ship materialized at the edge of the system, its hull bearing the distinctive organic curves of Zephyrian biotechnology. But this ship was different from any Zephyrian vessel in Alliance databases. Its surface writhed with patterns that hurt to look at directly, and its energy signature defied analysis. The probe moved through space with impossible grace, ignoring the laws of physics that should have constrained its movement. It scanned the Alliance fleet with sensors that penetrated their shields as if they did not exist, then turned its attention to the shadow strike. All ships red alert, Kethvar ordered, but his weapons officers reported that their targeting systems could not lock onto the Zephyrian probe. The ship seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, creating sensor ghosts that made accurate targeting impossible. Aboard the shadow strike, Blake watched the probe's approach with growing alarm.
Williams, are you reading the same thing I am?
Yes, sir. That probe is using precursor technology, but it has been corrupted somehow. The quantum patterns are all wrong, as if someone took the original designs and twisted them into something hostile. The probe suddenly accelerated toward a civilian transport that was fleeing the system. When it fired, the transport simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris field, no radiation signature. The ship and its 300 passengers were simply erased from reality as if they had never been. The demonstration served its purpose. Every ship in the Alliance fleet now understood that they faced an enemy with technology that could destroy them without effort. The political debates that had consumed the past few hours suddenly seemed irrelevant in the face of such overwhelming threat. "Commander," Carter reported, "the probe is heading directly for us." Blake stood at the center of his bridge, surrounded by crew members who had transcended human limitations, but still felt fear in the face of the unknown. The Zephyrian probe represented everything they had feared might happen if their enemies found precursor technology. "All hands battle stations," Blake ordered. "It appears our 72-hour deadline just became irrelevant. The Zephyrians have forced our hand." 3 days had passed since the mysterious contact first appeared on Alliance sensors, and the border systems now bristled with warships from every member species. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display that showed the largest fleet assembly in Alliance history. Vorthek battle cruisers hung in space alongside delicate Altarian science vessels, while Centauri research ships worked frantically to analyze the approaching contact. The thing moved through space like nothing they had ever seen. It appeared on sensors for brief moments showing impossible energy readings, then vanished completely as if it had never existed. The only trace it left behind was the faint quantum resonance that Dr. Quantel insisted was definitely human in origin. "Status report," Kethvar ordered as he entered the science lab aboard his flagship. Dr. Quantel looked up from a bank of monitors, his usually neat appearance disheveled from 3 days of constant work. "Admiral, the readings make no sense according to our understanding of physics. The contact appears to be cloaked using technology that bends space around itself. But the energy requirements should be impossible for any ship to generate. Could the humans have developed new technology during their absence?" Kethvar asked. "Not developed, Admiral. This represents a complete revolution in scientific understanding. The quantum pattern suggests the use of principles that our best physicists say should not work. Yet somehow they do work." On the opposite side of the lab, Ambassador Lyra studied long-range scans of the abandoned human colonies. She had spent the last 3 days reviewing every piece of data about humanity's disappearance, searching for clues that might explain what was approaching them. "Dr. Quantel," she said without looking up from her display, "have you considered that the humans might have found something? Some kind of technology or knowledge that changed everything for them?" The Centauri scientist paused in his work. "You mean they discovered something that forced them to abandon their colonies? Or something that gave them the power to transcend their previous limitations?" Lyra replied. "Look at these evacuation patterns. The humans did not flee in panic. They left in an organized fashion, taking only essential personnel and leaving everything else behind. That suggests a planned withdrawal, not an emergency escape. Meanwhile, far beyond the detection range of Alliance sensors, the object of their concern moved silently through the void. The UNS Shadow Strike bore little resemblance to the human ships that had once patrolled these regions. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating a strange visual effect that hurt to look at directly. Geometric patterns covered its surface, designs that appeared to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Commander Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the Shadow Strike, watching the Alliance fleet through sensors that could penetrate their most advanced stealth systems. The sight of so many ships gathered together brought back painful memories of the last time he had seen such a fleet. That was 2 years ago, when the Alliance had promised to stand with humanity against the Zephyrian invasion, only to withdraw at the critical moment. "Commander," Navigation Officer Lisa Carter called from her station, "we are approaching the outer sensor range of the Alliance fleet. Do you want me to maintain stealth protocols?" Blake considered the question carefully. The crew of the Shadow Strike represented some of humanity's finest survivors. Carter herself had helped design the revolutionary jump drives that allowed human ships to travel vast distances in a fraction of the time required by conventional hyperspace technology. Chief Engineer Alex Rodriguez had spent 2 years perfecting the stealth systems that made their ship nearly invisible to conventional sensors. "Maintain stealth for now," Blake decided, "but prepare to decloak on my command. I want to see how they react to our presence before we reveal ourselves." At the tactical station, Lieutenant Kevin Walsh monitored the Alliance fleet's movements with the practiced eye of a veteran. He had fought in the Zephyrian War, had seen human worlds burn while Alliance ships retreated to strategic positions that happened to be far from the fighting. The bitterness of that betrayal still burned in his chest. "Their formation is defensive," Walsh reported. "Multiple overlapping fields of fire, sensor networks designed to detect cloaked vessels. They are definitely expecting trouble." "Good," Blake said quietly. "They should be expecting trouble." Chief Engineer Rodriguez looked up from his console, where streams of data showed the incredible systems that kept the Shadow Strike operational. "Commander, the stealth field is holding steady, but I am detecting some quantum bleed-through. If they have sensitive enough equipment, they might pick up traces of our presence." Blake nodded. The quantum resonance was an unavoidable side effect of the technology they had discovered. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in caverns that had remained hidden for millions of years, humanity had found artifacts left behind by a race that had vanished long before the first human civilization arose. The technology contained in those artifacts defied everything humanity had thought they knew about physics. Dr. Sarah Williams, the Shadow Strike's chief science officer, emerged from the ship's research lab, carrying a data tablet covered in equations that seemed to writhe and shift on the screen. She had been one of the lead scientists studying the precursor artifacts, and her understanding of their function bordered on the mystical. "Commander," Williams said, "I have been monitoring Alliance communications. They are definitely picking up our quantum signature, but they do not understand what they are seeing. Dr. Quantel of the Centauri is closest to the truth, but even he cannot grasp the true nature of what we have become." "What we have become," Blake repeated thoughtfully. The phrase carried weight that went beyond simple technological advancement. The process of integrating precursor technology with human systems had changed them in ways that were still not fully understood. They were still human, but they were also something more. Intelligence Officer Amy Foster accessed the ship's vast database of information gathered during their 2 years of isolation. "Commander, our scouts have been monitoring Zephyrian activity throughout the galaxy. They have been rebuilding their fleets, but more than that, they have been searching for something. The same kind of artifacts we found on Earth." Blake felt a chill run down his spine. The Zephyrians had been humanity's greatest enemy, a species that viewed all other forms of life as inferior and worthy only of conquest or extinction. If they were seeking precursor technology, the implications were terrifying. "Have they found any?" Blake asked. "Unknown, sir. But our deep space monitors have detected some very strange energy signatures from Zephyrian space, signatures that share certain characteristics with our own technology." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had gained incredible power from the precursor artifacts, but they might not be the only ones. If the Zephyrians had found similar technology, The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in ways that no one yet understood. "Commander," Carter reported from the navigation station, "the Alliance fleet is moving into a more aggressive formation. I think they know we are here." Blake looked at the tactical display showing dozens of Alliance ships positioning themselves for battle. These were the same species that had abandoned humanity in its darkest hour, yet they were also the only potential allies against a Zephyrian threat armed with precursor technology. "All stations prepare for decloak," Blake ordered. "It is time to let them know that humanity has returned. And this time, we are not the same species they left to die." The Great Hall of Harmony Prime buzzed with worried voices as representatives from 12 different alien species gathered around the massive circular table. Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthak Empire stood at the center podium, his scaled hands gripping the edges as he looked out at the assembled crowd. His yellow eyes held a sadness that few had ever seen from the usually proud military leader. "Fellow council members," Kethvar began, his deep voice carrying across the silent chamber, "we are here today to discuss a matter that weighs heavily on all our hearts. It has been exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days since we last received any communication from human space." Ambassador Lyra of the peaceful Altarians shifted in her seat, her blue skin seeming to glow dimmer than usual. She had always been humanity's strongest supporter in the Alliance, and the loss of an entire species troubled her deeply. Around the table, other representatives murmured among themselves, some with concern, others with barely hidden satisfaction. Chancellor Vextoth of the Hegemony faction leaned forward, his red eyes gleaming. "Admiral, surely we must face the truth. The humans are gone. Their colonies sit empty. Their ships drift silent in space, and their homeworld Earth shows no signs of life. We have sent probe after probe into their territory, and found nothing but abandoned settlements and cold space stations." "That is not entirely accurate," Dr. Quantel of the Centauri spoke up, adjusting his spectacles with a thin finger. "Our last deep space probe detected faint energy readings near the outer rim of human space. The readings were unusual. They did not match any known technology in our databases." Kethvar nodded slowly. "Dr. Quantel speaks the truth. But these readings were so faint and brief that our scientists dismissed them as sensor errors or natural phenomena. We have found no concrete evidence that humanity survived whatever catastrophe befell them." The memory of Captain Jake Morrison still haunted many in the room. He had been the human representative to the Alliance, a man with kind eyes and a quick smile who always sought peaceful solutions to conflicts. His ship, the UNS Meridian, had vanished during a routine patrol near the neutral zone. Search teams found only debris and radiation signatures that told a story of complete destruction. "The question before us today," Kethvar continued, "is what we do with human space. 73 star systems, hundreds of planets, mining stations, and trade routes now sit undefended and unclaimed. The Hegemony faction has submitted a proposal to redistribute these territories among Alliance members." Chancellor Vextoth stood, his imposing figure casting a shadow across the table. "The proposal is logical and necessary. Empty space serves no one. These systems could house millions of refugees from the border conflicts. The mining operations could supply our fleets. The agricultural worlds could feed our growing populations. You speak of human space as if it were nothing more than empty real estate," Ambassador Lyra said, her voice carrying a sharp edge that surprised many. "These were not just star systems. They were homes. Billions of humans lived there, loved there, built families and futures there. We cannot simply erase their memory and claim their inheritance. Memory does not feed hungry children or house-displaced families." Vextoth replied coldly. "Sentiment is a luxury we cannot afford in these troubled times." The debate that followed grew heated. Representatives of the militaristic species supported the hegemony position, arguing that practical needs outweighed emotional attachments to a dead civilization. The more peaceful species, led by the Altarians and supported by the scholarly Centauri, insisted that humanity deserved more time, more searching, more hope. Dr. Quantel pulled up holographic displays showing the last known positions of human ships and settlements. The images painted a grim picture. Research stations powered down to emergency levels. Orbital habitats drifting dark and lifeless. Entire planets with no electromagnetic signatures of civilization. "The evidence is overwhelming," Vextoth pressed. "Whatever happened to humanity was swift and total. Perhaps it was a plague that swept through their populations. Perhaps it was some kind of technological disaster. Perhaps they faced an enemy so terrible that complete evacuation was their only option. But the result is the same. They are gone. Ambassador Lyra studied the holographic displays with growing unease. Something about the pattern bothered her, though she could not put her finger on what. The human colonies had not been destroyed by war or natural disaster. They had simply been abandoned. As if the entire human race had decided to leave everything behind and walk away into the darkness of space. If they evacuated, she said slowly, then they might return. We should not be so quick to claim what might still belong to them. Evacuated to where? Vextoth demanded. Beyond the galactic rim? Into the void between galaxies? Even if some humans survived, they are lost to us now. We must deal with reality, not fantasy. The argument might have continued for hours, but it was interrupted by a sudden chiming from the station's sensor array. Chief Sensor Operator Trelnak, a young Vorthak technician, looked up from his console with confusion written across his scaled features. Admiral, Trelnak called out, his voice uncertain. We are receiving some very strange readings from long-range sensors. Kethavar frowned. What kind of readings? A massive energy signature, sir. Moving through space approximately 47 light-years from our position. The signature is enormous, larger than anything in our databases. But sir, Trelnak paused, checking his readings again. The signature shows traces of human quantum resonance patterns. The council chamber fell completely silent. Every representative stared at the young sensor operator as if he had just announced the return of the dead. That is impossible, Vextoth said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Dr. Quantel was already moving to a secondary console, his fingers flying over the controls as he called up the sensor data. His eyes widened as he studied the readings. The quantum resonance is definitely human in origin, but the energy output. This reading suggests something the size of a small moon, moving at impossible speeds. Ambassador Lyra felt her heart racing. Could it be a human ship? No known human vessel could generate these kinds of readings, Quantel replied. But the quantum signature is unmistakable. This is human technology, or at least technology that was once human. Kethavar activated the emergency protocols, sending alerts to all Alliance fleets in the region. Whatever was approaching, it was massive, powerful, and connected to humanity in ways they did not understand. As alarms echoed through Harmony Prime, the representatives who had been debating the fate of empty human space now faced a far more pressing question. Humanity was not extinct. Something bearing their technological signature was moving through space toward Alliance territory, and none of them knew whether it came in peace or war. The Zephyrian probe bore down on the Shadow Strike like a predator that had finally found worthy prey. Its corrupted hull pulsed with energy patterns that made reality itself seem unstable around it. Commander Blake watched its approach on sensors that revealed the true horror of what the Zephyrians had become. Williams, analysis, Blake ordered tersely. Dr. Sarah Williams studied the readings streaming across her console, her enhanced perception allowing her to process data at speeds that would have been impossible before their transformation. Commander, the probe is not just using precursor technology. It has been integrated with Zephyrian biotechnology in ways that violate every principle we discovered. The result is something that should not be able to exist. Yet it does exist, Chief Engineer Alex Rodriguez observed grimly. And it just erased a civilian transport from reality. The probe opened fire on the Shadow Strike with weapons that tore holes in space itself. Blake felt the ship shudder as reality warped around them, but the precursor-enhanced hull held firm. The Shadow Strike had been designed to withstand forces that conventional physics could not explain. Return fire, Blake ordered. Tactical Officer Kevin Walsh engaged weapon systems that had never been tested in actual combat. The Shadow Strike's primary armament reached out across space with beams of coherent energy that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When they struck the Zephyrian probe, the result was spectacular and terrible. The probe did not explode in any conventional sense. Instead, it seemed to fold in on itself, its corrupted hull collapsing into patterns that the human eye could not follow. For a moment, it existed in a state between destruction and existence, then vanished completely as if it had never been. Aboard Harmony Prime, the Alliance representatives watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated power that exceeded their worst fears. The weapons that had destroyed the Zephyrian probe operated on principles that made their own military technology seem primitive by comparison. "Admiral," Dr. Quantel said quietly, "we are receiving another transmission from the human ship." Morrison's hologram reappeared in the council chamber, but now his expression carried urgency that had not been there before. "Alliance Council, you have just witnessed a sample of what we are facing. That probe was a reconnaissance unit, sent to gather intelligence on our capabilities. The real Zephyrian fleet will be far more dangerous." Chancellor Vextoth found his voice, though it trembled with emotions he was struggling to control. "Captain, the power you just demonstrated, you could destroy our entire fleet without effort. Why should we trust you when you clearly no longer need us?" Morrison's expression softened slightly, revealing glimpses of the diplomat he had once been. "Because, Chancellor, power without purpose is meaningless. We could conquer the galaxy, but what would be the point? We are still human despite our transformation. We still value life, still believe in cooperation, still hope for a future where different species can work together." Ambassador Lyra leaned forward, her blue skin glowing with hope that had been absent for too long. "Captain, what do you need from us?" "Your trust," Morrison replied simply, "and your commitment to stand together against what is coming. The Zephyrian construction project we detected is not just a weapon. Our analysis suggests it is something called a harvester, a precursor device designed to consume entire civilizations and convert their technology and biology into raw materials for expansion. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Alliance Council." Dr. Quantel pulled up projections that showed the scale of destruction such a device could cause. Entire star systems reduced to lifeless matter. Billions of lives ended in moments. Civilizations that had existed for millennia erased as if they had never been. "The Zephyrians have not simply found precursor technology," Morrison continued. "They have been contacted by something that guided them to it. Something that views both humanity and the Alliance as obstacles to be removed." Intelligence Officer Amy Foster joined the holographic conference, carrying data that made the assembled representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Our deep space monitors have detected the approach of the primary harvester construct. It is enormous, spanning hundreds of kilometers, and it appears to be partially alive. The Zephyrian fleet that surrounds it has been modified. Their crews are no longer entirely biological." Admiral Kethvar felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. "Captain Morrison, if this threat is as serious as you claim, what hope do any of us have against it?" Morrison exchanged glances with his senior staff before answering. "Alone, none of us have any hope at all. The Harvester represents technology that exceeds even our enhanced capabilities. But together, pooling our resources and knowledge, we might be able to find a weakness." Dr. Williams stepped forward in the hologram, her scientific authority lending weight to Morrison's words. "The Alliance possesses resources that humanity lacks. Your industrial capacity, your diverse technologies, your knowledge of galactic geography, combined with our understanding of precursor principles, we might be able to develop countermeasures." "You are asking us to trust you completely," Vextoth said, "when you have the power to destroy us all." "Yes," Morrison replied without hesitation, "just as we trusted you completely 2 years ago, when you had the power to save or abandon us. The difference is that this time, the stakes are not just one species, but every living thing in the galaxy." The silence that followed stretched for long moments as the weight of the decision settled over the Alliance Council. They were being asked to place their faith in a species they had betrayed, a species that had returned from apparent extinction with godlike power and questionable intentions. Ambassador Lyra was the first to stand. "The Altarian Republic pledges its full support to the Human Alliance. We will provide whatever resources you need." Dr. Quantel rose next. "The Centauri Confederation agrees. Our scientific resources are at your disposal." One by one, representatives stood to pledge their support, until only Chancellor Vextoth remained seated. The weight of every eye in the chamber pressed down on him as he struggled with a decision that would define his legacy. Finally, Vextoth stood slowly. "The Hegemony faction has opposed humanity from the beginning of this crisis. We have been wrong. Whatever you have become, you are still the species that values life above conquest. We pledge our support." Morrison nodded gravely. "Then we have a chance. Admiral Kethvar, please prepare your fleets for immediate departure. We are heading to the Galactic Core where the Harvester is gathering its forces. The Galactic Core? Kethavar asked. That region is largely unexplored. We have no idea what we might find there. We know exactly what we will find, Morrison replied. The source of the precursor technology, the origin point of the Harvester construct, and quite possibly the remains of the civilization that built it all. If we are going to stop this threat, we need to understand where it came from. The holographic display shifted to show star charts of the Galactic Core region, areas that had never been fully mapped by any Alliance expedition. Ancient radiation barriers and gravitational anomalies had kept most exploration ships away, but the readings suggested something massive, hidden in the cosmic maelstrom at the galaxy's heart. The journey will take us through uncharted space, filled with hazards that could destroy conventional ships, Morrison warned. But the Shadow Strike can navigate those hazards and we can guide your fleets through safely. Rodriguez added his engineering expertise to the briefing. We will need to modify your ships with precursor-enhanced shielding and navigation systems. The process will require close cooperation between our crews, sharing technology that we have never revealed to anyone. The offer represented the ultimate gesture of trust. Humanity was willing to share the secrets of their transformation, to risk their technological advantage for the sake of galactic survival. Blake appeared in the hologram beside Morrison, his command presence filling the council chamber even through the electronic medium. Members of the Alliance, we are about to embark on a journey that will either save our galaxy or witness its destruction. The species that once abandoned humanity in its darkest hour now has the chance to stand with us against a threat that makes our previous conflicts seem trivial. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembled representatives. We cannot promise victory. We cannot even promise survival. But we can promise that if we face this enemy together, we will face it as equals, united by necessity and hopefully redeemed by courage. The Alliance fleet began to move, ships from a dozen different species forming up behind the impossible geometry of the Shadow Strike. They headed into the unknown depths of the Galactic Core, carrying the hopes of trillions of lives and the weight of past failures that might finally find redemption in the face of ultimate darkness. As the combined fleet entered hyperspace, the last transmission from Harmony Prime carried a simple message that would echo through history. The Alliance and humanity, divided by betrayal and united by necessity, were finally ready to discover what lay waiting for them in the ancient heart of the galaxy.